And how was the food this evening?
Oh, it was lovely, thank you. No dessert for us though, our bodies are temples and all that. Just the bill, thanks.
Of course, sir.
Whew, that was a lot of food.
Oh, do you want to play a fun game?
Yeah, sure, why not? What's the game?
Alright, so before the waiter gets back, we have to guess how much the bill is going to come to.
Closest guess wins. Loser has to pay.
Alright, deal. Okay, I'm going to guess... okay, we shared an entree, you didn't have wine, we also got the side of fries. I'm going to guess like $110.
Okay, I think I'll guess 90. This place is pretty good on price.
The bill, gentlemen.
Oh, thank you. Alright, and the bill comes to... $270?
What?
Walt, your salad was $70.
Yeah, but you had a $50 glass of wine.
Alright, this is fine. We'll just split it.
James, I left my wallet at home.
Oh, crap. So did I.
What do we do?
I've heard about this thing where you can like wash dishes at restaurants to pay for food if you can't pay.
Yes. Oh, yes. Worth a shot? Excuse me. My partner, friend and I forgot our wallets at home. So we were wondering if we could pay by washing dishes at the back.
I understand. Of course, this is acceptable. Follow me through to the back.
Phew, that was close. I'm glad they're letting us do this, and hey, it might be fun. Why are we going outside?
The dish you're cleaning to pay for your food, sir.
That's a satellite dish.
This is the last time we have dinner at NASA headquarters.
I'm now curious whether or not we were so aware of having dinner at NASA headquarters because we wanted to, I don't know, maybe do some spying on a couple of space commanders ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
It's a good idea, at least. We should try it at least once.
I think at least one time we should see if we can get up there. Well, welcome to the Get Commanded podcast by the Greensboro Commander community. It's the GCP by the GCC and POG, Palms Off Gaming, sponsor of this podcast. We're all uniting forces to help you to have better games of Commander. I'm your host, Walt.
And hello, Commander players. I'm your other host, James. Now, before we get to that transmission from those space commanders we want to spy on so much, I do want to remind our listeners, because we didn't really shout it out in a recent episode, because it was a very short episode where we argued about a lot of stuff recently.
We did.
But we have a Patreon where you can support what Walt and I do on the Get Commanded podcast. And there's some really cool benefits like suggesting an episode. And we know for a fact that you guys really enjoyed the recent episode, the space battle that Walt and I had about politics. So if you want to request a podcast topic, there is actually a tier on the Patreon where you can suggest a topic. And if we think we disagree on it, well, it could just become one of those episodes.
Yeah, if you've got a real hot button topic, there's a strong chance that me and James agree.
Yeah, honestly, when we kind of brainstormed that idea, it was like, okay, now what do we disagree on?
Crickets. Look, it's a really great way to support the content that we make directly. And one of those tiers, yes, as you mentioned, is requesting an episode. So I reckon we should get to the command, because I have a sneaking suspicion that a friend of ours who we've talked about on the podcast before maybe has been involved in this transmission, but I'll see.
I can see someone CC'd on the email. I don't recognize
there is someone CC'd. Okay. Let's see what we get to here. So we have an incoming transmission from the deep depths of the galaxy from the Space Commanders. It's time to get commanded.
A new recruit in our ranks has made us aware of alternative ways to engage in multiplayer Magic the Gathering, something we previously thought impossible. Discuss the format Pauper Elder Dragon Highlander, more commonly known as PDH. Describe the ways in which it is different from Commander, and what sorts of experiences we can expect from this recently engineered multiplayer format.
So it is is definitely Fletcher in their ranks now.
He's joined the cohort.
There we go. Okay, so our first command from our
new Space
Patreons.
Commander.
Well,
beautiful.
Welcome to the Commander cohort, the Space Commander crew. And if listeners want to join Fletcher amongst the ranks, they can go to patreon.com/getcommandedpodcast and suggest episodes that they want to hear more about, just like Fletch.
Yes, but we should get to this topic, PDH.
Yeah, this is something that we have kind of like heard about, but we've never truly dived into it ourselves.
No, I mean, we often have played against Fletcher. Fletcher's a member of the community of players that we play Commander with, and Fletcher, probably in an effort to get more people playing this format, has been playing against us with Pauper EDH decks, so decks that follow the legality around Pauper EDH.
And they hang.
They do.
They hang. And I definitely want to talk about his decks in this episode because they're so cool.
Absolutely. But I guess we should start at the very top. Do you know the rules for PDH?
I do, actually, because I've recently been kind of looking into PDH as a potential way for me to expand my deck building.
Sure.
Like, we've talked a lot on this podcast about deck building, and I feel like I've built so many Commander decks and Pauper decks. I want something different, something new that really forces creativity. And in my research, formats like Modern, formats like, even Legacy, if I wanted to build a proxied version of a Legacy deck, because I'm not selling my kidney for a Legacy deck. But if like you look at all these like, staple formats of Magic, they have a meta, right? And they're really strong metas, but I have looked into Pauper a little bit, and it's really flexible. There is a lot of variety, and there is actually like a PDH home base, and they've got like their own rules committee that like runs the bans. And I'll actually put the link for the PDH home base in the resources for this episode as well, so you can scroll down to the show notes and click that. But huge shout out to like Scarecrow, Ragamuffin, Clay, all the people on that Discord that really put PDH together as a format, because after researching it, it's a really good looking format. Lots of creativity, lots of opportunity to challenge myself. And that's why I've been looking into it. So I'm aware of the rules now.
Yeah,
I actually know what's going on. So you know that like it's a kind of variant of Commander, right?
I mean, like, I've always been interested in it myself because it marries my two favorite formats, which is Pauper and Commander.
I'm shocked you haven't built a deck already, to be honest.
I've been meaning to for a really long time. I just like two formats is like my brain is close to filling already.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, like I totally get the appeal. Like Pauper gives you such an interesting deck building restriction of sort of removing bombs, rares from packs and uncommons from packs. And then simultaneously you get to play 4-player, multiplayer, casual.
Which is like our
Commander.
favorite way of playing.
Absolutely.
100%.
Yeah, no, it sounds super interesting.
So to kind of like gun through the rules a little bit,
sure.
I'll start with deck structure, because this is like the most important bit when you talk about Commander as a format. You talk, okay, you have to have a legendary creature as your Commander, blah, blah, blah. PDH is different. So with PDH, you can choose any uncommon creature as your Commander.
So it doesn't have to be legendary.
No. So there are legendary uncommon creatures, but you can have any uncommon creature.
I can have like Angel of Vitality in the command zone.
If you want to, yeah. You go for it.
I'm building an Angel of Vitality deck.
But like that is like the only rule, and then the rest of your deck can only have commons or cards that have been printed at common level. So similar to Pauper. So like, once upon a time, Counterspell was printed at common.
So it's legal in this, for the sake of this format, yes.
Correct.
It's considered a common card. Cool.
Yeah, so it's a pretty insane amount of like variety for your Commander.
Sure.
And it's a bit of a restriction to what you can have in your 99. That's like the inverse that I found when I was looking into this format.
For sure. And so I'm guessing then, like, from here, I'm guessing it's 100 card singleton, like Commander, given it's like a Commander variant.
Correct. Yep.
Right. Can you have like multiple commanders?
You totally can. I'm going to talk about backgrounds a bit later on.
Okay, sure.
Because I wanted to kind of call out the legendary creature command zone bit.
Sure.
Because this is the section that I was like completely shocked on. Because when you say, right, you can only use common cards in your 99, you go, right, now I'm using like you said, like I have to use less bombs and really find the common cards that work well for my deck.
Yeah, I mean, we talk all the time about synergy. I feel like this is a format where synergy would be even more important than normal.
Oh my god, 100%. But the thing that I found really interesting was the commanders that are available to you. So I got a little bit inspired by our recent deck building episode and did a Scryfall search with syntax.
Oh,
yes,
syntax.
I've been training myself. I've been like, doing the flashcard thing of like, what does this syntax code mean? It will mean it will search the database for any legendary creature that's in these colors. Yes, got it. Awesome.
Beautiful.
So I did I did 2 Scryfall searches. Well, a couple, but I'll tell you what they are. So my first Scryfall search was T legend, T creature.
So legendary creatures.
Correct. Minus is funny.
Okay.
Which just takes out uncards.
Sure, which we kind of don't ever play, really.
Yep.
Yeah.
And legal commander.
Okay.
So basically, give me all the legal commanders that are not in the unsets.
I can give you the teeniest of corrections to your syntax.
Oh, have I done it a little wrong?
No, not wrong at all, but there's actually an easier way to search this. There's a command is : commander.
What?
And it will show you every card that can legally be your commander. So,
that's even more simple.
Because it would include... So the thing that your search would be missing would actually be backgrounds, for instance.
Well, yes,
they're not legendary creatures, but they can be your commander. So
correct, they can go in the command zone.
Yeah,
that's something I didn't think about.
Sure.
But my Scryfall search came back with 1,664.
A lot.
It's a lot.
There are a lot of commanders to choose from.
Correct. And then on top of that, I also did another search for Planeswalkers, because some Planeswalkers
sure.
can be a commander.
Yep.
I was shocked to find that there's actually 19.
That is quite a few.
I thought there was like
5?
8. I thought there was
maybe?
top 8, because I thought we've had like 2 sets of pre-con decks.
Yeah, that are Planeswalkers.
But there are 19. Really, really weird.
I'd really like to see that list. I might have to do my own syntax Scryfall.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, I've put it in the show notes if you want to have a look. But the one that shocked me was Obnixilis was a commander that's a Planeswalker. But in his human form, totally forgot that was a card.
Oh, random.
Yeah, really weird.
Okay, good to know.
Anyway,
sure.
My next Scryfall search was uncommon.
Rarity uncommon.
Correct. Minus is funny.
So again, don't unset cards, yeah.
T creature.
So uncommon creatures, yeah.
Legal PDH.
So this is everything that you could theoretically play as your commander in PDH.
Correct.
But namely, this is every uncommon creature ever printed.
Correct.
You want me to guess the number, don't you?
I do, because I've specifically excluded this from the notes in front of us.
So there are 1,600 that were printed. Those are just legal commanders, specifically. Yep. Your thing's dinging at you.
Yeah, it is. It's overloading with the amount of variety, if that's a spoiler.
Oh my god. Every uncommon creature ever. There's like 50,000 Magic cards ever, isn't there? I think this number's going to be scary big. My guess is 10,000.
Not as big as that.
Not as big as that, okay.
It's 4,309.
So that's still...
It's like three times
as much as all the commanders combined. And keep in mind how much we, just me and James, your friends Walt and James, talk about how many commanders there are
and how overwhelming the amount of commanders it is. So like if you're looking at like recent sets and the stats that we pulled out about like 2022 having more commanders printed than ever in the history of Magic the Gathering, you're looking at a format that is now like growing at an exponential rate. Uncommon creatures. There's already over 4,000. When I thought about it, I was like, okay, I'm thinking of like, that 5,000 to 10,000 range. But then when I actually saw 4,000 come up as a number, and then I scrolled to the bottom of the Scryfall search page and saw how many pages of Scryfall searches that was.
Yeah.
It was like hundreds. I was like,
wow,
that is intimidating.
See, the first thing I thought of is a parallel universe where Walt and James host a Pauper EDH podcast,
and then they go,
the amount of and it starts. Hey, it's Walt. Get Pauper EDH podcast here.
So there's a new set out. We're going to go through all 900 of the new uncommon creatures.
Let me slay.
That would be a terrifying universe.
It would be.
I'm actually like, because now that I've like looked into the format and I want to build, I've had a look at some creatures, but I feel so sorry for the people that have to play Pauper EDH because think
Jade,
about
you gotta
it.
tell people to play the format, bro.
I think the format is incredible, but you know how we're getting burnt out with the amount of legendary creatures that are coming out.
True. Oh my god,
Think
imagine
about the burnout for them.
Imagine, so like, you know how people do set preview, like set release
Yeah.
episodes where they're like, these are all the commanders we want to talk about. Imagine being the Pauper EDH people being like, all right, new set just dropped, guys. We got 100 new commanders to talk about.
And we're going to go through every single one.
Oh.
Welcome to the 8-hour episode of this Command Zone.
Wow.
Yeah, I was shocked.
That's amazing. It's a massive
really crazy.
number of creatures that you could potentially be choosing from.
Now, there's a couple of other rules about the PDH that I want to highlight as well. Obviously, it's a multiplayer format, so the suggested players is 3 and up, same as Commander, but 4 is kind of the ideal. However, the life totals are different. PDH has 30 as their starting life total.
Interesting. So my guess here is that like the games are just a bit slower and a bit grindier.
Yeah, generally I've now watched a little bit of gameplay and played it a little bit as well, but it generally seems that if you were to have a 40 life total, it would just make the game go forever.
I mean, even Pauper games can go so long, and like we're talking about Pauper and Commander like merged together, and namely like the big difference we're going to have here. Like Pauper is a pretty busted format, but
there's
in
some
that
crazy
format,
things you can do in that format.
there absolutely are. But you can play 4 copies of each card.
Yeah, this is
Pauper.
singleton.
This is a
Good
singleton
point.
100 card format. So yeah, I can see a grindy kind of mid-rangey sort of format here, is my guess.
And to support that kind of speeding up of the format as well, the life total, the commander damage is also less. So it's 16 in PDH.
Okay, so like with regular Commander, this is like half the life total plus 1.
Yeah.
That's easy to remember.
Exactly, yeah.
That's nice.
So
Cool.
you've got a little bit. So
you can survive, by the way, if I swung at you 4 times with my Angel of Vitality, ayo, you're dead.
I'm going to hold you to this. I want to see this deck.
Angel of
yeah.
Crap. Couldn't I have picked a better, like, first deck?
It's probably going to be a very shit life.
It'll be terrible. We need to... no.
But... there's a couple of other rules that I want to go through, and then we can go through some of the nuance as well. But obviously, the free mulligan rule is allowed in multiplayer formats.
Yep,
that's something you can do.
Same as like even with Oath Breaker and that kind of thing.
Yep. But the ban list is something I kind of wanted to highlight as well, because we did 2 episodes on the Commander ban list.
Yeah.
And
which is pretty short.
Yeah, well, we
things
said
considered.
in those episodes that, like, the ban list for Commander is tiny. Like,
yeah,
it
like
really
relatively
is tiny.
speaking, you know, because there's the sort of big broad categories of like uncards and like cards that say
Conspiracy.
playing for the ante, and like those are all pretty easy. But once you eliminate all those, like I think it was like 25.
I think 25 to 30. It
Yeah.
didn't, and we did every single one. We spoke about
the
every
main
single
ones,
one at length. Not like the big chunk list.
Not
that
the
we did,
ante
but
or anything.
every card that's like listed and
matters.
itemized and
Yeah.
matters.
Yeah,
we talked about. So that was 2 episodes. So you're strapping in, ready for a big discussion on the ban list for PDH?
I'm on the edge of my seat.
Okay,
reading
so
the script.
we'll get rid of those, big groups. So the cards that label conspiracy, they're out.
They're
same as
out.
Commander.
Anti-cards,
Anti,
as well.
any card that Wizards has removed from all constructed formats.
Oh yeah, the racist ones. Yep,
all that kind of stuff. So let's dive in. Ready?
Sure,
This is going to be 2 episodes worth of content.
Okay.
We have the first card we got to talk about is
Mm-hmm.
one that I think some listeners would probably already have kind of identified. Ristic Study.
Understandable. This is,
Yeah.
this card should not be common. I think if it was printed today, even at rare, this card would be too good.
Correct. It is a staple in Commander.
Yep.
It is played in every blue deck you could possibly want to play it in, and if it was legal in PDH, I think it would you would have to play blue, otherwise you weren't drawing enough cards.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, okay. I mean, no, that's a pretty easy one. I think we'll move on to the next one. In a
Sure.
similar vein, Mystic Remora was also printed at Common.
Oh yeah, understandable. This is Ristic Study's younger brother who is smaller and faster.
Faster, but
Question
also makes you pay a little bit more. It's got a cumulative upkeep, which in Commander can like make it go away. And Mystic Remora is not a target for removal because eventually the player that played it will let it die.
Mystic Remora is Ristic Study's younger brother who is an investment banker.
Yes.
You gotta prop him
He's
up
like,
on loans.
dude, I just made an investment in this great new crypto. You should totally go with it.
I was going the other way of like, I need to make an investment in crypto. I just need like $5,000. just give me $5,000.
Prop me up, man, and I'll give you the return.
This time, I'm telling you, this time it's gonna go off.
You'll draw like 3 cards, bro. So,
Right,
like,
okay.
again, down the same vein.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Blue
Makes
enchantments that draw a lot of cards.
Yep.
And That's it. That's the ban list.
No way.
No, I'm serious. That is the entire ban list.
Well, the good news is if we did our multi-part ban list episode, we could spend an entire episode on each card.
Oh, the next 2 episodes of the Get Commander podcast have been planned.
Mystic
Episode 1,
Remora.
shitting on Mystic Remora. Episode 2, shitting on Ristic Study.
I'm picturing the thumbnail right now of me, but like photoshopped into being an investment banker.
And just me in the background handing you a card.
Yes!
I like
Perfect.
that.
I like it.
I'll get ready for the next episodes. But that is it. That is the
Wow.
entire ban list.
That has so, like, we talk about how good it is that Commander's ban list is so short, purely for the sake of, like, accessibility of the format. Like,
Yes.
there's not very much you have to get your head around to understand what you can do.
Yeah.
This is far better. It's like, okay, everything that's been printed at Common before, these 2 cards are banned, and all the obvious other ones are banned.
Yep.
Go nuts. That's great.
Your database is Scryfall. You go nuts, man. Like, you dive in. It's insane.
That's wild to me that there is not a single uncommon creature that has been considered so busted that they've banned it.
Yeah,
That is so impressive.
some people in the PDH community have argued for other like uncommon creatures to be banned as commander. Because do you remember how the rules committee used to have banned as commander?
Yeah.
There's been some talks, and I've seen some Reddit threads where people are kind of going, "Oh, do we really want to see, for example, Sir Conrad?"
I mean, yeah, he's busted for an
He's
uncommon.
busted in Commander. Like, if you build a Sir Conrad deck, he's nuts, and he can go really hard in PDH. I've seen a couple of people talk about Crypt Rats as well. There's some other creatures that people are like, maybe we should, but to be honest, when you have over 4,000 Commander options, you don't see them as often.
Right.
That's just the way of it being. I've watched a couple of streams, and I've actually linked a couple of streams in the show notes as well for people to go and check out. But the streamers always have a different deck. They're like constantly playing something else, which is kind of wild. I was just in shock of how variable this format is.
That's sweet.
Even then, you have an additional number that you can add on to that. Because you said it before, backgrounds.
Oh, so you can play them.
You can play backgrounds.
Like the legendary creatures that say choose a background, a few of them are uncommon. Like Wilson.
Yes.
Refined Grizzly is an uncommon creature.
What a bear. I
love that guy.
But yeah, so there's a couple of rules around the choose a background thing. Firstly, your background does have to be an uncommon background.
That makes sense.
Can't be one of the rare ones.
Yep.
It also is good to note that you can use the backgrounds in your 99, just like regular Commander.
Oh, cool.
It doesn't have to be in your command zone. And I've
That's
actually...
kind of weird, though, because if it's an uncommon card, you can have it in your...
There are
fully legal.
Yeah, common backgrounds.
Oh,
common
okay.
backgrounds. So same rule applies. Common backgrounds you can play in your 99.
Right, that makes sense. It's just following the same rarity rules.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Now, there's another nuanced rule about commanders that I kind of got my mind warped on when I looked into it. But Throne of Eldraine, and keep in mind, Throne of Eldraine's coming back, so we're probably going to get this mechanic again soon.
Wilds of Eldraine soon, yeah.
Do you remember Adventure?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you cast a spell as the adventure, it goes into exile. It's usually a creature which you can then cast like, oh no!
Yes.
There are uncommon adventure creatures.
I just watched Walt go like, yeah, James, this is a really simple mechanic. Oh no, you can have one in your command zone now. And yes, you can have it in your command zone.
No.
So, the way it works, it kind of works pretty intuitively, actually. It kind of works the way you would expect it to work.
Sure.
Basically, the command attacks goes on the aspect to the spell. So, casting the creature as the creature is related to command attacks, and casting the spell from the command zone is related to the command attacks as well.
Right, so if I cast it as the adventure, and then it goes into exile, I can leave it in exile and then cast it as the creature. It won't pay command attacks.
Correct, because it's not being cast from the command zone. It's in exile.
But alternatively, if it dies or it any other way ends up back in the command zone, it knows how many times it's been cast. So now if I cast the adventure or the creature, a command attacks of 2 is going to apply.
Correct, because it's linked to the card.
That actually makes more sense than I thought it would.
It's pretty intuitive, but like I did the exact same thing when I was looking. There's an elf commander that's like Selesnya, and I was looking at that, and it has an adventure on it that like makes elves. Then you can cast the commander and it comes in. I can't remember what the card's called.
Right, okay.
But I was like, oh, that seems like a really cool deck where you can kind of keep spamming the adventure spell from oh, wait a minute. And my mind just melted and I had to go and look up the rules.
Right.
So,
How interesting.
yeah.
Cool.
Also, one more rule.
Yep.
You can't play Dryad Arbor as a commander, which I think is bullshit. Dryad Arbor is an uncommon creature, technically, but it's also a land, which is its super type.
Oh,
so
it's a land before it's a creature.
Correct. Yeah.
That is so weird.
Land, like, supersedes creature as a type.
I wonder
bizarre.
how that would work. Like, I wonder if the commander rules stipulate cast from command zone. I'm guessing...
Maybe not play from command zone.
Yeah,
That's true. I didn't
maybe
think about
even
that.
if it was... Oh, that's so weird.
It's so weird to get your head around.
I'm glad it's not legal, so I don't have to think about it. And
I think
my judge friends don't have to melt their brain when I ask them
Yeah.
how it works.
PDH guys were just like, you know what? No.
Yeah,
If we just say no, it's never going to happen.
Let's not worry about it.
There is also a really fun variant on PDH, which is, they call it Pauper Dual Commander. This is like 1v1 Commander.
Oh, cool.
So there's like a separate ban list and a separate thing, but this is like
right.
2 players. The difference is similar to 1v1 Commander, your life total is different again. So now the life total is 25.
Okay.
But the commander damage is actually upped because it's like a 1-on-1. So commander damage is 21 again in 1v1
okay.
Commander.
That honestly seems like a good way to balance it out. Like the life total being lower means the games aren't going to be super grindy or whatever. Like they can be over a bit faster, which is the appeal of 1v1. Really,
100%.
it's a
And
big part of it.
I think if you're a PDH player and you've got a bunch of commander decks and you have, you know, a mate, it's a great way to grind a game out. It's pretty
totally.
fun.
But then equally, like, obviously, there's going to be certain commanders that are going to be so busted
Correct.
as, you know, in the command zone that 15 commander damage or 16 will be so doable against one player.
Yeah. And also, obviously, because it's a 1v1 format, you don't get a free mulligan. And the player who's going first doesn't draw on their turn.
Sure. So I think the really important thing to note here is, for those out there who aren't aware, the thing about drawing a card on your first turn is actually not a commander rule. That's a rule of multiplayer Magic.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's a good way for you to get your head around it. Like, oh, should I be drawing a card on my first turn? Just ask yourself, are there 2 players or are there more than 2 players playing the game? If there's 2 players, you're not drawing on your first turn. If there's more than 2 players, you are. I apologize if I'm incorrect on that, but that's my understanding of the rule.
Because there are other multiplayer formats as well.
Yeah, like we talked about Oathbreaker.
And Two-Headed Giant.
Two-Headed Giant's a great format.
You've got like variant formats like the Horde, if you've ever played the Horde.
I haven't played the Horde, but I'd like to at some point.
Definitely cool formats. But there's a separate ban list, and this ban list actually caught my eye because there are some cards on this that I immediately saw and was like, oh yeah, that would be legal in this format.
Right.
So this is banned in the 1v1, but legal in 4-player PDH.
Okay.
So banned in 1v1 is a card called Oubliette, which if you play Commander, you would know Oubliette because Oubliette's nuts in Commander format as well as PDH.
You'd also know it from Pauper if you played Pauper.
Correct.
I don't see a load of play these days in Pauper, but like, it was originally printed as a common.
I play it in one of my lists in Pauper, and I play it in one of my Commander decks as well. I think it's in my Liaison deck.
The issue here is that it just like, it's one of the few ways to permanently deal, like you are getting rid of someone's commander without putting it in the command zone, and it's an enchantment that's doing it. So in certain colors, you just never get to remove Oubliette.
Yeah, Oubliette basically is an enchantment that ETBs and phases a creature out. So it doesn't exile it or put it to another zone. Phasing is treating it as though it didn't exist.
Right. So it doesn't die or go to the exile, so you can't, as a replacement effect, put it, not as a replacement effect.
No, it's a state-based action. It's a state-based action, I think.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway,
check with the judge.
You can't put it in the command zone because it's not gone anywhere. It's just not there.
Yeah, it just doesn't exist. The commander that's banned in this format, the 1v1 format, is Loyal Apprentice.
Oh.
Have you heard of this card? This is the one that makes Thopters.
This is the one that makes a Thopter at the beginning of combat if you control your commander.
Yeah, but in this format, it is your commander.
Oh, no!
So it would just be like, cast it, slowly create Thopters, beat your opponent to death.
I'm changing my mono-white Pauper EDH commander. I'm not going to play Angel of Vitality anymore. I'm swapping to Loyal Unicorn.
Oh, yes!
Move to combat every turn, swing for free with vigilance, can't die in combat. Amazing!
He's a special friend.
He
even scratches the top of your head.
Exactly right, but you didn't read that in the newspapers.
Check out the TikTok if you want to know what the hell that's about. Yeah. But also there's a couple of other bands. The one that I noticed as well was Agent of the Shadow Thieves, which is funnily because Fletcher actually played with this background as one of his commanders in a 4-player game that we played.
Oh, this was literally the Patreon game we played with him, where this was like the Rakdos discard deck?
Yeah, I can't remember what the card reads verbatim, but it's basically, it puts +1 counters and makes a creature indestructible if you're attacking multiple players and meeting certain criteria, is what I remember.
Someone has to have the most life, I think.
Or higher than one of your opponents.
Right.
It's one of those
Reads
weird...
kind of like Brina.
Yes, which is like you read it and go, I have to read that again.
Yeah. It's one of those weird things where when someone else doesn't read you the rules but just explains it, you go like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. I get it.
It has to be worded like that on the card.
Like Wheel of Misfortune.
Oh my god.
Explain that to a 5-year-old.
Yeah,
That'll happen.
No thanks.
So
No
look,
thanks.
that's my research. That's my understanding of the rules and how it all works. But other than that, it is just like free range.
Right. So it's just regular old commander. Different commanders, obviously, and then you're playing with the Pauper ban list, and actually a few extra cards.
Yeah, you can play with some of the cards that are on the...
You can play Mystic Sanctuary.
You can play Gush if you wanted to.
You can play High Tide.
You can play High Tide. Actually, High Tide is a key card in a lot of combo decks.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That doesn't shock me at all.
Yeah, but like, I was like, okay, well, now I've read the rules. I was on the PDH home-based website, and they actually had at the bottom of the page this section that says, why play PDH? And I was like, oh, this is actually like, I genuinely am interested in this. I want to know why I should play it. And they had three main pillars that I thought were like crucial to the format, and it was cost, creativity, and community. And like
all C's as well. That's
all
nice.
C's, yeah, CCC, yeah,
Beautiful.
like it. I love alliteration. But I thought these three things were just so simple and so easy. We've talked about them already as we go through. But cost for like, you know, this is a huge reason to play.
Absolutely.
And it kind of, you said at the start of the episode, this is the reason Pauper is one of your favorite other formats is because how many decks you can brew. It's like, doesn't break your budget. It doesn't mean that you have to like splash out an expensive bombs and have fetch lands and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, I build regular budget commander decks, so
yes, exactly.
like a format that's almost exclusively budget decks would be sick.
Well, I mean, on average, like decks will range from like 100 to 200. Some are as low as $50. Like
That's
a
great.
whole deck
That's
is $50.
so sweet. That's exactly like Pauper. You can buy like a tier 1 Pauper deck for like maximum $150, and most of them are like 80 to 100.
Yeah.
It's great.
There are some really, really cool stuff. Like, I mean, Fletcher, who has given us this command, himself has over 50 decks in his collection, and most of them are PDH decks. And the reason he can build them all is because they're just like so
Dirt
cheap.
Yeah.
They're just, you can grab them, and like you've got a bunch of these cards in your collection already. Because let's be real, we talked about it in the episode Throw Away Your Chaff. Most of your common cards are terrible. The ones you keep are definitely played in this format.
Oh, yeah.
100% played in this format.
I can imagine it's very similar to Pauper in that, like, just those good, solid, common printed cards are going to be your bread and butter, really.
But the one that really stuck with me was creativity. Like, knowing that there's so many, like, thousands of commanders to choose from, over 4,000, I was just, like, shocked at how much variety there was. And when I was scrolling through, I was like, there's just archetypes that would be so hard to build in regular Commander that this uncommon creature kind of wants you to try.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we've probably, anyone who's been playing Commander for a really long time has had that experience of going like, I wonder if there's a Commander that can do like this weird strategy, and then you go looking and you're like, oh, there's one that kind of does it.
Like people have wanted to play like Phoenix Tribal for a while, and like there's just
really
not enough
for it. Yeah, but in this case, surely with every uncommon creature.
Because usually the way it works in Commander is you find an uncommon or rare creature that isn't legendary, and you're like, oh, I want to build around this. For example, actually, Mirrorwing Dragon was a card that you looked at and was like, I love this card, I love this effect. Is there a way I can build this in Commander? And then you found like Feather, Zada, and then you ended up building Croc and a Chroma as a partner pair for some reason. Just because you hate yourself. But like, I think that the thing that I focused on with this kind of lesson that the PDH Homebase was teaching was the creativity aspect. The reason why they say creativity is such a big part of it is because you have to think about your deck a little bit more than Commander deck building. Like we have made now 4 episodes on deck building advice. We've talked about mana curve as well. So like if there are so many resources out there for deck building.
Totally.
EDH Rec in Commander is like the place to go. You can literally put your Commander in, click a button that says give me a suggested deck. It will build it for you. Then you can just play test it if you want. You can see if you like that Commander.
That's true. Is there not like a PDH Rec?
Now there is.
Right.
it's shit.
Oh.
No offense to anyone that's like put time and effort into this, because these websites, like EDH Rec is a huge team now.
Yeah,
It takes a lot of time, a lot of data to build, but it is super basic. Basically,
Right.
all it is a list of all the legal cards, and I mean like a list. It is like a database of the legal cards, and it just shows you a percentage of how many decks they're played in on like deck techs online.
Right. So you're not really like so much looking at like the page for a commander and seeing which cards
No.
they run. It's just like straight up,
is-
this is what the format's doing.
Yep, this is how
that's
many.
Much less usable overall.
Yeah, so I think the thing that I took from that was it's really up to you as a deck builder. There's not going to be as many deck building videos online. So if you want that kind of challenge of building a new deck but having some restrictions where you don't look at a YouTube video or don't listen to our template or whatever it might be, this format is brilliant for that.
Yeah. I think this is like the really interesting thing about this, I think, for me, is that unlike Commander, where you can kind of throw in a bunch of bombs, right, into a deck, and it'll kind of like play itself in some sort of way.
Yeah, like if you slam Smothering Tithe, cool, you're gonna get mana now. Like you've got mana.
There are just like straight bombs in Commander, and like I imagine that there are cards that sort of fill a similar like there's almost certainly staples in PDH.
Yes, for sure.
But I imagine that when you're building a deck, it's not the kind of thing where you can kind of just like, you know, thread a few bombs together with some extra card draw and ramp and then call it a day. Like, you probably have to build an entire deck around an idea. And this actually, I think, is one of the things I love so much about Pauper, specifically, is that there's definitely cards that are much better in Pauper, and there's staples in Pauper, but the way the gameplay unfolds is a lot more like sort of building an army. Because you kind of have to have multiple moving parts before your whole strategy comes together. Whereas there are so many other formats where it's like, cool, I resolved this spell, you lose. You know?
I'm casting. Think of like I overload Cyclonic Rift.
Yeah.
On your end step. I'm gonna win the game now.
Well, even a card like Overwhelming Stampede. If you're on a
Craterhoof
go wide,
Behemoth,
like if you are in a go wide strategy, it's very easy to reach a state where that's a win. But yeah, if you're looking at Pauper EDH, you're probably looking at cards like, I don't know, Rites of Initiation.
That's slightly worse.
Yeah, significantly worse, I would say. It sounds really cool in that way.
Yeah, I think the thing that I took from it was like with Pauper, it's so much more important to have the whole deck be greater than just one of the cards in it.
Yeah.
Like, I've got, like, a couple of decks where I've spent a lot of money. Like, for example, I have an Elf Ball deck, an Abomination of Llanowar deck, and
This is in Commander.
Yeah, this is Commander. Yeah, definitely not PDH. But it's a commander that I built, like, pretty low to the ground, built it pretty cheap, and then over time I've made it better and better. And then I bought a Craterhoof Behemoth for the deck. And that card ends games.
Yeah.
Like, it just ends games. Now that I have a Craterhoof in there, I'm like, I warn people about the Craterhoof.
I was just going to say, like, it's a good thing to warn people about because it is a card that takes a deck that's just got a lot of creatures and says, I now win.
Yeah, if this resolves, I win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where an overrun or overwhelming stampede like might get you some of the way there, but it's not quite Craterhoof level, you know?
So I think there's a lot to say around the creativity side of it, but I really strongly urge you, if you're interested, to join the last C in their a little CCC, which is the community aspect. They have a Discord, and I'm now a member on that Discord, and actually got the creator tag privileges, thanks to the mods out there. But they have 700 members on their PDH home-based Discord now. So it's like a real community.
Yeah.
Like a really big one that's worldwide. They have spell table games. There's a lot of streamers that post their content. There's like videos, YouTube links, and all that kind of stuff. It's really cool. I've linked it in the show notes as well, so go check it out. There's a huge array of decks to choose from, really cool people to talk to find out what deck, and it is not going to break your bank. I kind of like this format.
Yeah, it sounds really sweet. And I mean, look, I feel like we've covered, like, I think I have a reasonable understanding of like the format and how it works.
Yep.
But it has been 40 minutes.
Yeah, shit, it has, yeah.
So I think we should take a thrifty interlude.
This is one of the most relevant thrifty interludes we've ever had. Is the card legal in... It is. That's... Harrow is printed at Common. You can totally do it. You can totally do it. So as is tradition, there's lots left of the episode, obviously.
James has lots of stuff up his sleeve there. I can see his sleeves are bulging.
That's my rippling biceps.
Oh,
bro.
my mistake. But I will be bringing this card to life in the form of the Cowled Merchant, who will be making an appearance
I love that guy.
in monologue form. Would you like to, and you've already said the name of the card, but you wanted to read out what Harrow does?
Yeah, but Harrow is a sick card, and I'm not too sure if there's many landfall decks. I know that of one that is kind of landfall-y, but Harrow is a super staple in Commander, let alone PDH, but Harrow is 2 and a green for an instant that says there's an additional cost to cast this spell. Sacrifice a land, search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, and put them onto the battlefield, then shuffle.
Introducing this green spiky thing. I think it's a shrub? What is the botanical categorical delineation for a plant to be considered a shrub? Apparently, shrubs have persistent woody stems, which sounds like the setup for a joke that everybody hates except for your dad. I'm going to let you in on a little scheme I'm cooking up. I just told my landlord that I'd like to plant a shrub and a small tree in my backyard, and she said no to the tree, but yes to the shrub. Fair enough, but joke's on her because the shrub will grow to be 5 meters tall! Nature is truly unstoppable, and so is the power of presenting someone with 2 losing choices, and so are you, if you have the persistent woody shrub on your side. Get budgeted!
You've said shrub so many times now, it's like lost its meaning.
Shrub.
Also, that is a joke that not your dad like. I like the persistent woodies.
Persistent woody stems.
That's funny.
You can check out these strange things as they're released in text form over on our Discord server, which is linked in the show notes at the channel #ThriftyThursdays. And you can see some of these brought to life in video form over on our TikTok channel, which is at Get Commanded. You can also find it if you just search Get Commanded Podcast on TikTok. So chuck us a follow on there to see those as they come out.
Yeah, we're looking at doing some exciting stuff. But back to the main point of discussion, which is PDH and all its amazing stuff. So in the last half, we talked about what the rules are, and we talked about some of like the weird things about it, like adventure spells in the command zone.
Yes.
But I reckon it's really hard for a podcast, especially an audio podcast, to talk about a game that is new to most of our listeners. I imagine most of our listeners probably don't know PDH or never seen a game of PDH. So it's hard for us to give you the vibe of it.
Yeah.
So, look, I'm going to recommend that you go and watch some gameplay of PDH. Now, I've put some links in the show notes. PDH Pod on Twitch are pretty frequent, and they're very funny to watch. They're a good group. There's also a YouTube channel called The Common Connoisseurs, which I think is a very nice YouTube channel name.
Fantastic. Big fan of that.
But they've got some really, really great content on their stuff. And they recently released an episode of a sub format of Commander, which is Pauper Commander, but Pauper Oathbreaker Commander.
Ooh,
so that
would be fun.
Yeah, so they really go all out on their channel. They have some really, really cool gameplay, and they also discuss like new cards from recent sets for the format.
Yeah, sweet.
And when you do go over there, tell them Get Commanded sent you.
Yeah.
But look, the closest thing we can do on an audio podcast where we just talk instead of play games is actually look at some decks and kind of see what some people are playing and kind of talk about it. See if we like them, see if we don't, imagine how they would play out on a board.
Yeah, I think a philosophical position is kind of like wearing a hat in your brain. And I think seeing what a deck is like putting a gameplay hat on your magic brain.
Yeah,
I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does. We went to Australian primary schools where they had like the yellow hat, which was. Did you have that at your primary school?
The yellow hat.
It was like we had like different colored
construction
hats.
worker.
Yeah, the hard hat.
They said to you at 6 years old, "I'm sorry, your math scores aren't very good. Construction for you."
You didn't do child labor at primary school?
No, I missed that.
Maybe just my thing.
Damn.
No, but they had like different hats for like different thoughts. So like you put your yellow hat on when you were thinking emotionally, your red hat on when you're thinking this way.
I don't think I ever did that. That's a great way of illustrating it.
My primary school was really forward thinking, I think.
Yeah, and I'm really forward thinking too.
So do you want to put some... hats on and look at some
Yeah,
decks?
let's put some deck hats on our magic brain. I'm committing to it.
Sure, you commit to this all you'd like. But I have linked all of the deck lists we're about to discuss in the show notes. And the first deck that I wanted to look at is the one that actually I immediately, when I looked at the rules of PDH, I thought, oh my god, I could build this creature as a commander. And the commander is Crypt Rats. And
James!
yeah, we've talked about
Yucky!
this. And we also talked about the fact that I identified a few people online saying it shouldn't be a commander.
So I'm guessing, I'm going to hazard a guess here, that you were in this, like, a Twitch chat somewhere, right? And they were playing Pauper EDH, and you were like, oh, this is so cool, you can play any uncommon commander. Wait! I want to play Crypt Rats. What do you think of me playing Crypt Rats? And they all said, what's the matter with you? You could be playing Loyal Unicorn. You could be playing
Angel of Vitality.
Angel of Vitality.
That is exactly what happened,
Word
actually.
for word.
Pretty much word for word. I was in a Twitch chat, I was in the looking at the PDH pod Twitch stream, and yeah, they basically ripped me to shreds because they were like, look, okay, I should probably remind what Crypt Rats is for those that don't know.
That's kind of important.
It's basically a board wipe in your command zone, but you could be playing Massacre Girl in Real Commander, which is also a board wipe in your command zone.
Yeah.
But Crypt Rats is a creature rat that's a 1/1 for 2 and a black, has an activated ability that says X. Crypt Rat deals X to each creature and each player. Spend only black mana on X.
Right, so you can pump 3 black mana into this, and everything on the board is taking 3 damage, and each player is taking 3 damage. This is a Pauper All-Star.
I use it in my Pauper list, which is why I thought of it.
The mono-black control list, which has sort of been, it's quite down in the meta these days, but it's been a very consistent part of the Pauper meta for literal years. Almost a decade at this point.
A lot of people call them rat decks. Like, if you're running, and because then you also run Chittering Rats in those kind of lists, which is like
makes you put
hand hate.
discard, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so look, anecdotally, Crypt Rats is a pretty nasty commander because it's constantly wiping the board. And from what I've found, PDH is a very creature-based format. So if you're constantly wiping the board, it really slows the game down. And the problem is, in Pauper 1-on-1, my Crypt Rat deck's controlling the board is great because it's a fast format anyway, and it's like I want to play a slightly slower game, but I also turbo into Crypt Rats with a lot of mana. If I'm on more life than my opponent, I can pump all my mana into Crypt Rats and kill them, and I can live on 1 life. But
it's a real clock on the game.
It is really clock. Like, it's really, really quick. And Pestilence is an enchantment that is also does
similar thing.
Pretty much the same thing. So in those situations, it can be really powerful, but what I've heard and what I've seen now of gameplay is that Crypt Rats is one of those commanders that we've often referred to as like the not powerful enough for the top tier CDH decks and not fun enough for casual.
This is the Coma/Turgrid effect.
Yes, which means like everyone's like, yeah, it's good, but like don't play it.
Yeah,
like,
all the casual players are telling you, this is not so fun, we don't want to play against that, and all of the CDH people, or CPDH people are telling you, you could do much better, probably. Yeah.
And I think this is the really annoying thing, but like, because Crypt Rats is only 3 mana, the repeatable, like, way, because you're making the game go slow, you can easily cast Crypt Rats from your command zone over and over again. And you're also in black, so you are running things like Unearth and, these ways to get Crypt Rats out of the graveyard for cheap. In common slots, it's surprising how many you can run. But the real secret to this deck, and the reason why people start hating it, is because you give the rat lifelink. And that just blows you ahead so far, because every 1 damage you deal to every creature and each player, you gain 1 life for all of it.
Right, so this is a rule that, like, some people get wrong a little bit. They sort of assume that lifelink only applies to combat damage, but actually when something has lifelink, if the creature, would deal damage, its controller gains that much life as well. So, in the case of Crypt Rats itself is the thing that's dealing this damage. So it having lifelink, even though none of this is happening in combat, all the damage it's doing is getting you that much life. Oh, that seems crazy good.
Yeah, and you'd be shocked. In common, in black, there are tons of ways to do this. Alchemist's Gift, Vampiric Link, Rush of Vitality, also gives Indestructible, by the way, at instant speed. Unexpected Fangs. There's like a list of cards that do this. So you are just going to automatically put yourself in a position where you cast a 3 mana commander, give it lifelink, pump 3 mana into it, gain 12, 15 life on turn 4.
Yeah.
It is nuts. It is
Wild.
really insane.
Wild. Okay, so if you don't want any friends, we recommend the Crypt Rats.
Yeah.
I imagine we have a version of this list in the show notes?
Yes, there is. The list I've linked is actually by Kinger8.
King Rate?
King Rate?
King Great.
King Great. Anyway, it's in the show notes.
It's probably one of those.
Yes, I assume they wanted you to pronounce it in a certain way, and probably none of them were ours. But there is also a really good primer on that list as well. So if you want to understand how the deck works...
Oh, we love a good primer.
Yes, I love a good primer.
We've talked before about CDH and how the best way to get into CDH is via the CDH decklist database. That thing explicitly links to lists that have really good primers.
Correct.
Because that's kind of how you have to justify your existence at the top of a format. And it's the best way to learn a new one. I learned so much reading my Yashan.
Yeah. I've now read the full primer of Niv Mizzet, and I'm actually fully aware of what the deck does.
Nice.
Do you want to have another look at another deck?
Absolutely.
Now, this deck you've actually seen before,
Have I?
recently, in the last couple of weeks.
Oh, this is another Fletcher list, I'm guessing.
It is
or
another Fletcher list.
Under his other moniker, Time Load.
Yes.
Perhaps.
So if you want to check Fletcher's deck lists out, they are also linked in the show notes.
Cool.
There, you can check this deck list.
A very comprehensive Moxfield profile
Yes,
out there.
you will spend a lot of time on that profile. But my favorite Moxfield name award goes to Fletcher for this deck name. You ready?
Okay.
The deck's name is Rain the Jock Donson.
Oh, this is the one that makes rocks, right?
Yes, it is, yeah.
Okay, yes,
So
I like it.
It's partner commanders, and you actually play one of the partner commanders in Commander.
I do.
So it's Itch to Keek, Salvage Splicer for 4 and a green. This is a legendary creature. It's a Phyrexian human artificer,
That's
1/1.
been errated, by the way. It doesn't
Yeah.
say that on the card, but that's what it reads now.
He now also goes in Phyrexian tribal decks.
Yeah, he also makes... Oh, you're about to read it. But
Yeah.
the golems he makes are now Phyrexian. They didn't used to be either. So, yeah. Someone was showing me the other day... Sorry, there's a bit of a tangent. But there's a board wipe that just got printed. I think it's it's one of the ones that flips. I think it might even be
one of the new
Elishnorn.
Praetors, yeah.
And it says destroy all non-Phyrexian creatures.
It definitely goes in.
And someone was like, you should be playing this in your golem list. And I was like, no, I shouldn't. Oh, wait.
Because they're Phyrexian
They've been
golems.
errated. Yeah.
So yeah, Itch to Keek, he ETBs and creates a 3/3 colorless Phyrexian golem. But the other line of text, which is the nuts bit, is whenever an artifact is put into a graveyard, doesn't have to be yours, any graveyard, from the battlefield, put a +1 counter on Itch to Keek and a +1 counter on each golem you control. It also has partner.
So mine partners with Rebecca. It's like a Selesnya artifacts list, but this one partners with...
Togo Goblin Weaponsmith. So for 2 and a red, you get a legendary creature, Goblin Artificer 2/2. Now the cool thing about this deck is, and I want to point it out here, is you can run this in Commander, and we've actually played against Fletcher's deck in a game of Commander, because this is a Commander legal PDH deck.
Yeah, we should say we've played against a lot of Fletcher's PDH lists.
Yeah.
In regular Commander, actually.
Because he can find some that have legendary creatures. Anyway, this one has a landfall keyword, and it says whenever a land ETB is under your control, create a colorless equipment artifact token named Rock. With a crypt creature has 1 tap, sacrifice the rock. This creature deals 2 damage to any target, and it's got an equip cost of 1.
Very, very strange way of it all being wording, but basically you are giving rocks to creatures, and they are throwing the rocks.
Correct. It's really weird.
It's very strange, but like the image you get in your head is actually pretty true to how it works, which I think is an indicator that they've gotten the rules text right.
Correct.
Like you literally have to give the rock to the creature, equip it for 1. You have to tap the creature, i.e. it's making an action.
Throwing it. It's like you can almost see the tapping motion as a throw.
Yes.
Like...
You have to lose the rock, it's sacrificed, and then the rock itself deals damage. Well, the creature deals damage via the rock.
Yeah. You know
to
what?
Something. It's perfect.
I also find it funny how we've got cards like Shock, which is like an electric bolt coming out of like a wizard.
Yes.
Yet a rock deals 2 damage as well. I find that funny. But basically, the deck is built around utilizing these rocks in the best way by using creatures with Death Touch.
Oh, this is actually like very relevant to what we just said about the lifelink rats thing.
Correct.
Because likewise, creatures that have death touch, any damage they deal, including by throwing rocks,
Because it's them that are dealing the damage. It's not the rock that deals the damage,
destroy
weirdly.
the creature that
Correct.
does damage to. This is actually, I'm taking it all back. This ruins the rock throwing metaphor. Like if it's a poisonous snake, one, how's it picking up a rock? But two,
Its tail, I guess?
okay, it's balancing a rock on its tail, spitting on it a lot, and then
all the venom
flinging
on
the
it.
rock, and that venom is so potent that the rock hitting a creature, no matter how big that creature is,
Yeah.
dead.
So this tiny little moss viper, this 1/1 death touching snake, throws a venom covered rock at, I don't know, Sun Titan. And Sun Titan just goes, ugh, and dies.
That is so funny. This has happened to me in my dreams.
That's your reoccurring nightmare?
I'm Sun Titan, and someone's piffing poisonous rocks at me.
I think it's a really fun deck though.
It's really cool.
It's got this really cool, like, early game strategy of just, like, get your death touches out, maintain a board state where you can control the board, hold some mana up to respond to problems, and then in your end game, these rocks that you're sacrificing are buffing the hell out of the odd golem or two that you're making.
Your other commander is Shakir.
And by the way, there's some really relevant golems in the common category that you can play. Bottle golems?
Oh, this one's got trample, and when it dies, you gain life equal to its power. I actually play this one in my regular commander deck. It's really sweet.
So, like, a 5/5 bottle golems with trample in commander is pretty like, oh, that's a 5/5 that's going to gain you 5 when it dies that came out. How much is bottle? It's like 2 mana to
I
cast?
think it's 3 or something?
Yeah. But, like, that's a lot of value, especially if you're sacrificing a load of rocks. And then Iron Bully is
I also play this one.
Yeah.
This is the 3-mana one that has menace, and when it ETBs, you put a +1 counter on a creature you control.
Yeah, it's
but
nuts.
yeah, like it's going to be like a 5/5 with menace pretty soon. That's so sweet. I mean, this is a really cool deck. I think we talked about it in the Mana Curve episode, decks where you can kind of like reason your way through how the game should look. This one really lays it out for you. It's like, okay, get your commanders out. Or get some death touches
Toggo out first. Yeah,
and death touches early. Then get Ishtakik out. Then ramp, sack some artifacts, and just do rock stuff for the rest of the game.
And I mean, it's really cool because, like, the deck also has cards like, I mean, Lotus Petal is also a common card. So you can have Lotus Petal in your deck and sacrifice that and buff your golems.
And ramping you out a little bit.
Chromatic Star, Sleeper Dart, Pyrite Spellbomb.
Right,
These
so
are
all these cantripping artifacts.
Yeah, that, like,
Sweet.
sacrifice to draw you a card to give you a mana.
That's so cool.
Really sick.
Yeah.
I really like this deck, and I've played against it, and I would love to pilot it, Fletcher, if you want to lend it to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, check it out. It's linked in the show notes.
Definitely.
The next deck I've got for us to have a look at is Maggie the Collector.
Actually, never heard of this commander before.
Went flying under the radar because it was in New Capenna, and we played a little bit of New Capenna, but was super attentive.
Sure.
And also New Capenna had some, like, pretty big bombs in it.
This is
these
also-
kind of, like, uncommon level cards were, like, not talked about.
Definitely. It's also like, New Capenna introduced so many 3-color legends that, like, because they're 3-color, unless you're going out and building them, you're not really aware of them because they're not playable in very many decks.
Well, I mean, that's the deal. That's the whole thing with Lagrella the Magpie, which is the name on Moxfield is Maggie the Collector, which I actually like a lot more than Lagrella the Magpie. But it's a legendary creature, human soldier 2/3.
Cost green, white, blue.
Yes, so it's 3-color legend. When it ETBs, you exile any number of other target creatures controlled by different players until Maggie leaves the battlefield. And when an exiled card enters the battlefield under your control this way, put 2+1 counters on it. So this is a really cool build. It, like, incentivizes this flicker blink strategy.
Yeah, right.
Which, to be honest, in green, white, blue, lots of really cool things that you can do with that.
I mean, white, blue is like the flicker colors for
Yes,
sure. So I can
100%.
see there being loads of, I mean, I know of several like Pauper legal ways to flicker things and bring them back.
But, like, even just, like, really solid cards that you can think of. Like, this deck plays Spirited Companion, which is just, like, the goodest boy.
The goodest boy.
Except Moe, of course.
Yeah, of course.
But, like, ETBs draws a card. If you've got a lot of ways to flicker stuff...
Well, you can play Ephemerate in this deck.
You can play Ghostly Flicker, which... To be fair, is part of the main strategy of this deck. Cause
right, I'm guessing there's like a Ghostly Flicker sort of win con of like...
Yeah, using Archaeomancer to, like, return it to hand,
Right.
Peregrine Drake to like untap lands.
Okay. Kind of go infinite mana and or infinite ETBs or something.
Yeah, there's ways to win with infinites in this deck. You can
Cool.
like find infinite mana and then cast a spell like Capsize that has buyback and it bounces any permanent. So you can just bounce lands for the rest of the game.
Yeah, it makes
which is pretty brutal.
Make it so that you've got a big board. Probably just swing with your Peregrine Drake every turn,
Yeah.
and everyone else is like 0 lands, 0 creatures, 0 artifacts.
But it's also not going to be too long that you're going to have to swing because Maggie could be like a 50-50 because you're putting 2+1 counters on stuff.
Oh, that's nice to have that built in.
It's going to end the game a little bit quicker, which is
sure.
nice. But look, you could really easily depower this deck by taking out Ghostly Flicker and making it a little bit more casual. But check out the list.
CPDH list. So
It's not quite CPDH.
right, okay.
Because, like, and I'm glad you mentioned CPDH, because this is, I want to touch on CPDH separately.
Right.
Because this is, again, and this is a callback to when we talked about EDH competitiveness, CEDH. CPDH is a metagame and a mindset.
Not a different format.
Correct.
Crucially, yeah.
Correct. So we talked about this a little bit more in that what CEDH isn't episode, but basically your rule 0 in CPDH games are the same as in CEDH. All deck strategies are legal and accepted. Decks are crafted to affect the game as early as possible, ideally on turn 1. Players agree to only make plays that help them win.
Right, so this is just explicitly the mindset we would have playing CEDH. We're just
Correct.
playing a format that has slightly different availability of cards and slightly different rules around the commander, but our approach to how we're playing the game is identical. We're trying to win as quickly as possible, as efficiently as possible. We're not worried about particular strategies, that kind of thing.
100%. So there is a database for this. You can go on,
cool.
like, I've linked it in the show notes.
Great.
But I thought just to have a look at what some CPDH deck lists look like.
Yeah, for sure.
I looked at the top of the meta. The top of the meta I found really interesting. It's not a combo deck. It's actually a partner commander, and you could play this legally in Commander because they're both partner legendary creatures. But it's Amrex and the Ghost of Ramirez de Pietro?
De Pietro?
Di Pietro. I'm not sure how good my Spanish is, but basically Amarix is whenever it attacks, you can discard a card. When you do, target creature defending player controls get neg-X, where X is the number of artifacts you control plus the number of artifacts in your graveyard.
So this is basically you can trade one of your cards to remove a threat that the defending player controls.
Which, again, in PDH, where the format is really creature-based, removing key creatures is crucial.
Well, especially on a body that's going to be dealing commander damage as well. So this is going to be a way for you to just accrue value
That's
over
a
the game.
3/2 as well. Like,
Yeah,
it's pretty big attack.
It's a decent rate, for sure.
For 2 and a black.
Yeah.
But the partner commander, Ghost of Ramirez de Pietro, for 2 and a blue, so it's a blue-black deck, you get a 2/3 legendary creature spirit pirate that says when it deals... It can't be blocked by creatures with toughness 3 or greater, by the way. But when it deals combat damage to a player, choose up to 1 target card in a graveyard that was discarded or put there from the library this turn and put that card to its owner's hand.
You know, we've had Commander Legends for 3 years now. I've never thought about the combo that this pairing introduces
It's
because
so cool.
you can just do, like, assuming there's nothing else you'd rather be doing, you can just do Armix attack, discard something with the Ghost of Ramirez de Pietro trigger, deals combat damage. That card was discarded this turn.
Get it
Put
back.
it back in your hand.
It's like you have in your command zone repeatable removal and repeatable like kind of recurrence, and it's super strong.
It's so cool. And again, the really great thing we're doing here is all of this is involved in the combat step. So again, in a format like Pauper EDH, those incidental bits of damage are going to be super relevant because we don't have bombs really so much.
I mean, the crazy thing about this is a blue-black list. In CDH, you see blue-black and you go, Demonic Consultation, Thassa's Oracle.
Yeah.
You don't have that in PDH.
No.
So this is not a combo list. It's just a control list. It has just got tons of removal, tons of counterspells, and when I say tons, I was shocked at how many common counterspells exist.
We actually had a little bit of a look as well, and it's got like loads of counterspells, but also loads of cards with transmute.
Yeah,
which
super
is
cool.
such a cool little combo because with Ghost of Ramirez de Pietro, you have to transmute at sorcery speed. So you transmute first main phase, but then when you go to combat and deal combat damage with Ghost of Ramirez de Pietro, you can bring that card back into your hand.
So,
you can then transmute it again.
So, for example, Dimir Infiltrator is a 2-mana creature that has transmute. When you transmute it, if you don't know what transmute does, you tutor your library for a card with equal CMC.
Yeah.
So 2 mana, gets you any counterspell out of your deck that you'd like. It's really strong.
That's fun.
But check the list out. It's the primer's written by someone called MTG_Crash on Moxfield.
Great
it's
name.
a sick list. And
Sounds sweet. I think that's the one I'd be running if I was playing CPDH. It just seems like wheels are turning, but also
you
no
feel like
combo.
you're interacting with the game.
Yeah.
Really cool.
That's really cool.
Now, if you want to know a commander that's just been around forever, it's hated in the CDH community, it's hated in EDH community, it's hated even in the CPDH community. It's Tatyova Benthic Druid.
Oh, yeah. Understandable. Simic, good stuff.
Simic just drawing cards, playing lands, just doing stuff.
Yeah.
So the creature that's helming this deck is 3 green and a blue for a legendary creature Merfolk Druid that has landfall. Whenever a land ETB is under your control, you gain a life and draw a card. It's also a 3/3, which is a big body in PDH.
I mean, the main thing that you do in a deck like this is you just play every fetch land you possibly can. Even in CPDH, you're going to be playing like Evolving Wilds, Terramorphic Expanse, anything like that. You're just going to be basically drawing like 2 minimum extra cards per turn. A card like Harrow,
yes, is really good.
Would be especially good in a deck like this.
It's just drawing you so many cards, and it is a combo list that uses, again, Ghostly Flicker, like with the Maggie deck.
Right.
To combo with stuff like Archaeomancer, Mnemonic Wall, but you combine this with spells like High Tide, for example, which is banned in regular Pauper, but not in PDH, which makes your islands tap for 2 blue.
Yeah, until end of turn. Super
It's
cool
insane.
spell.
You can basically dig through your entire deck very quickly to find a win.
I think this is the one where when we were looking at it a moment ago, it had like this really cool diagram actually, where it had Tatyova on one side,
actually.
and then all of the different like combo outs, and it had them as branches off Tatyova. It was a really cool way of illustrating like, oh, this is how you can find the win.
Yeah, check this deck list out in the show notes, because it was like a photo where it literally had lines drawn.
Yeah,
on the photo. It was really cool.
No expense was spared. Yeah.
Now, I think that something worth mentioning here is we've talked about CDH and we've busted some myths on a previous episode about how, it's not this really competitive, sweaty, terrible environment. I think if you're looking at CDH, like CEDH, and you want to get into it, maybe try CPDH, test it out, see if you like, because it's the same metagame and mind state where you have to find the decks and you have to play to win. It's a great way to kind of dip your toe into it. It's like Coke diet. It's like same great tastes, no sugar. Like
it does feel like you would have a lot. The ability to be punished for your mistakes would be a lot lower because the stakes associated with individual spells are probably just going to be a little bit lower. Like in CDH, if you don't counterspell the right thing, you might just lose literally like
on that turn,
a spell later.
On the stack.
Yeah, like literally instantaneously. Whereas I feel like with CPDH, there's probably still going to be moments like that, but mostly it's going to be more about grinding value and finding your outs.
Yeah, I was actually, I do agree, but I was shocked when I watched and played a couple of CPDH games at Plenty of Games not long ago.
Right.
Was shocked at how quick it is.
Yeah.
It really is speedy. So it's like, it is affecting the game on turn 1, making very significant plays on turn 2. Like,
wow.
It's really interesting. So you should check it out. But look, Pauper Commander is a unique format where it has even more variety than regular Commander in some circumstances. With affordable decks that can be built on even your budget, Walt. A growing community of global players and some really great content creators promoting this format. I actually wouldn't be shocked if this variant of Commander is already being played at your local game store. It's a fun, low-to-the-ground format that has heaps of interaction and some very unique play patterns that aren't even seen in regular EDH. Additionally, if you've ever wanted to try your hand at some competitive Commander but don't want to break the bank, CPDH could be for you. Space Commanders, command received.
Good one.
It's interesting format, right?
Yeah.
Really cool.
It also felt kind of cool to be just stretching out just magic muscles.
Yeah,
you know?
it's rare on this podcast that we get to talk about... We try and drop Pauper as often as we can because we love Pauper.
We do love Pauper.
But yeah, a whole episode dedicated to technically not Commander.
Yeah.
It is Commander, but it's Pauper Commander.
It's a little different. Well,
Yeah.
to the listeners out there, do you feel commanded? What do you think of PDH? Do you think you're going to give it a try? I know I will. And which of those literal thousands of commanders are you going to build if you were to build a deck?
I've identified a couple. I like Crip Rats, but it's a bit gross. So I've also identified, which is also a top meta CPDH commander, it's the Is It Guild Mage. Basically, you can for a triggered an activated ability, you can copy spells on the stack.
Oh, Nivix Guild Mage.
Is it Nivix Guild Mage?
Nivix Guild Mage.
I think so.
You pay like 1 blue-red, you can loot. You draw a card, discard a card, and then 2 blue-red, copy a spell on the stack. I think.
Oh, it might be a different one. I'm gonna double check this. I'm gonna double check it, but there is it commander that can copy spells on the stack. It's really, really strong.
Yeah, this one does that.
Yeah.
For 4, you can copy a spell on the stack, but for 3, you can loot as well.
Yeah, I think maybe it is that. I'm just thinking that, Matt, that might be rare. The Nivix. I think there might be a couple of guild mages.
Oh, okay, sure.
Anyway, but check it out. It's
one of those
sick,
blue-red ones, yeah.
But look, there's plenty of ways you can get in touch with Walt and I and talk about PDH and see if we're actually going to build these decks.
Sure.
You can send us an email, you can add us on Twitter, or you can join our Discord, which is definitely the best place to come and chat with us and the rest of our playgroup and community. And yeah, it's a really, really cool space. We're going to be playing spell table games on there. Our recent Space Battle episode has still got conversation going on about it, which is really cool. And thank you to the community for engaging in the Discord. It's really cool to see you guys do that.
Absolutely. And look, we would be remiss to not mention our Patreon page, especially after an episode like this one that was supplied so generously by our patron, Fletcher Cutting. Thank you for supporting us in the Space Commander tier, Fletcher. You are the best.
You are the best. And thank you to Palms Off Gaming for sponsoring our podcast. These guys make awesome deck boxes and sleeves and other gaming accessories. You can check them out at palmsoffgaming.com.au. And I think that's just about me done for Commander.
Sure.
I had to really stretch my brain in this one.
Definitely.
It's like a different way of playing Commander. I'm used to Commander, but PDH is different. So where are we going to planeswalk to this week?
Planeswalk. I have been so busy that I straight up cannot think. Like, I know what I've been doing, but all of the things I've been doing, I've talked about in the Planeswalks before.
Yeah, you've been up to Sydney recently to work on your project.
Sydney. It's the same project I've talked about before.
Yeah.
There's progress being made, but there's nothing I can really report in on yet.
Well, look, I can't really back you up because I also am flat out at the moment. I have been running some major recruitment events for the university I work at, and it's been busy. Watched any good TV or movies recently? Or
yeah, actually.
Yeah.
For my birthday was recently.
Yes, happy birthday.
Thank you. And I decided to watch on the new TV that me and my partner bought, which I think I mentioned a few podcast episodes ago. We're in our new place, it's all set up. We were like, all right, let's break it in with something really spectacular.
Yeah.
Decided to watch Interstellar.
Oh, that would be... Oh, that's a great movie to test a TV out on.
It was sick.
Yeah.
It was so sweet. I've got like a little speaker system as well. So for that Hans Zimmer, organ. Oh, it was...
Man, floorboards must have been vibrating.
Yeah, it was great. It's one of my favorite movies for sure.
Yeah, it's so visually stunning. It's such a good one. I've been watching I've been obsessed with... Every Wednesday, my partner and I are desperate to get home to watch the latest episode of Ted Lasso.
Oh, you told me about this before.
Yeah.
This is the one where he's like... It's an American coach that's gone to England to coach like an English football
Yeah, so he's an
team.
American football coach.
Oh.
And he gets a job in England to coach like a Premier League football team.
Right.
And it's... I say that, but the show isn't about football at all.
Right.
It's about the characters and the connections and the... all that, like the drama. It's a drama comedy. It's really funny. It's really sweet. And actually, just recently, I do want to shout this episode out. The last episode that I watched as of recording this, which was the 11th of May. So I don't know when this episode comes out. But anyway, the recent episode that just came out was about one of the players on the team, Colin, was closeted for pretty much his whole career.
Right.
And there was an episode where someone got hold of his phone and saw he was texting a guy, and basically one of his other players on the team found out he was gay.
Right.
And this whole episode, I mean, as like someone that had to come out to their friends in the past, like I was feeling this anxiety through the whole episode.
Absolutely.
And the guy that found out, the other player on the team, was like avoiding Colin and like not talking to him. And you're like, oh no, he doesn't accept him and rah rah rah. And then there's this beautiful scene at the end where he says, I'm upset and angry. And Colin's like, I'm sorry, I can't change who I am. He's like, you lied to me for so many years. What is it about me that you couldn't tell me? So it was like this beautiful little flip of like, he was just upset that Colin didn't trust him.
Lovely.
And it was, look, it's a beautiful episode. Definitely watch Ted Lasso. It's a really good feel-good show. There's a couple of moments where you're like feeling like really anxious, but every episode you leave going, I have a message to take into the week. You know, keep trying or believe in yourself. It's those like corny American style messages that you really feel good about.
You need that sometimes, especially I imagine this is like an end of a long day kind of show. And
it is Wednesday night after, it's hump day in my work week, and it's
perfect day for it.
100%.
Yeah, beautiful. All right, well, I think that's just about all we have time for. So we'll catch you next Friday for more Get Commanded.
Goodbye, Commander players.
Bye.